I am joined by Robert Griffin III, James White, Field Yates Meanakeims.
All right, so first play we're going to look at, 2nd and 2, one of the Patriots' first offensive plays.
Let's talk about another Patriots, or not another Patriots wide receiver, but the Patriots wide receivers currently on the roster, and that's Ja'Lynn Polk, who Jerod Mayo talked about it. I believe it was after Sunday's game or maybe Monday morning at one of his press conferences post-Texans game, and said that Ja'Lynn Polk has a mental hump to get over in order to eliminate the drop passes that he's had over the last couple weeks. Taylor, we had the numbers on yesterday's film show. Not off the top of my head. Don't remember them, but basically weeks 1 through 3, Polk was super consistent, catching a majority of his targets. And over the last 3 weeks, he's caught, I believe, 5 out of 19. So not great from his end. But Ja'Lynn Polk actually spoke today to Mass Live's Mark Daniels saying, I'm not dealing with the mental problems at all. And even said that he has the best hands in the NFL despite all of the drops. So Taylor, your immediate reaction to Ja'Lynn Polk's comments today with Mark Daniels?
I think he needs to stop being so vocal, to be honest. And I'm not Mr. like silence players or anything, but This is the second time he's made a comment. Obviously, there was in the Dolphins game when he thought he got both feet down, he was very adamant that he was in and all that. And it's like, nah, man, I'm sorry. By the letter of the law, you were not. So maybe the rookie, back off a little bit, show a little more humility, I think. And I don't like telling people what to say, but it's just because it's not true. Like, you don't have the best hands in the NFL. You've been in the NFL for 6 weeks in terms of the regular season. Like, bro, like kind of ease off that a little bit. And I have the numbers here. So he's been targeted 16 times since week 4. He's caught 5 of those passes. He had 2 drops on 3 targets against the Texans, and we broke it down on our show. Make sure you check out. We talked about how Drake May is help unlocking the sophomore receivers, but the rookie receivers obviously aren't really playing well enough for the coach's liking. And part of that is because not only was he dropping passes, he also ran the wrong route one time, and another time didn't look at Drake May on the last play of the game for the offense. For whatever reason, Drake basically had to throw blind and took a hit because his receiver kind of hung him out to dry. So I just disagree with that. Now, they're not counted as drops by PFF because against the 49ers, he had one punched out. I think it was similar. He had 2 drops against the 49ers. I don't know why they didn't call the second one because he extended it, bounced off his hands on a dig, and almost got intercepted. I don't know why that didn't count. But he also had a drop against the Dolphins where, Jalen Ramsey was also right there and he was making contact. But if you're Ja'Lynn Polk, like, you're not going to get a lot of separation. You need to make the catches. And then the first drop, it's all these hitches. Like, I feel like almost every single one is a curl or a hitch where he's trying to sell vertical, come back to the ball. First time it's kind of contested deeper downfield, he drops it. But the second drop that he had was bad. He's open, not very far downfield, just flat out dropped the ball. Whether he's got like a mental hurdle, maybe he doesn't see it that way and he was maybe offended by the wording. We don't know the tone that he used. We just read it, so not totally sure. But yeah, no, Ja'Lynn Polk does have an issue. He needs to be more consistent. And whether he agrees or not, we may end up seeing it in the lineup because we've seen these coaches are not hesitant to make you play less. And we're already seeing Ja'Lynn Polk. He played 55 snaps against the Dolphins. 55. He played 55 snaps against the Dolphins, 40 last week against the Texans. And you know who snap count is going up? Kendrick Bourne. So it's like they don't need him in the rotation. Obviously, he's talented. We want to see the guy thrive. But, I mean, like, he's got to also own up. He's not playing well enough.
No, I get that. And I think, realistically, him saying that he has the best hands in the NFL, and I think that's more of just I'm uber confident in myself, right? And I'm not going to let anybody else tell me that, I can't do this. And so on one hand, it's like, okay, he's got, he believes in himself. And I think that's a good thing to have instead of, he's not feeling sorry for himself. He's not sitting there and saying, yeah, I stink and I need, like, no, I can do this. I just need to get through it. I got nothing going on, in my head. But at the same time, you're right. You do have to own up to it and be like, look, I messed up and I'm going to get better from it. And here's why, because I do have this confidence in myself. So it is sort of a messaging thing, but I think you're right where, you kind of got to back it up before you start saying you have the best hands in the NFL. Now, another thing he mentioned is that he's sort of waiting for an opportunity to get better, but he's also been limited in what he's able to do on the field. And Polk was playing a majority of the Z receiver role to start the year, and that's sort of where he had all the success. And again, it wasn't.
We saw the flashes.
Yeah, flashes. Success is maybe a little strong because he hasn't been great this year, but that's where we saw the flashes and more consistency in targets. Last couple weeks, Kendrick Bourne comes back. He sort of rotates and starts playing in more of the X receiver role, and that's where he seemingly sounds like his role has been limited. So do you think that needs to change in order for Polk to get better? Do you think it's a scheme thing? Do you think it's a fit in this system? Why do you think Ja'Lynn Polk feels like he's limited in what he can do.
Yeah, last week, friend of the show, Matt Harmon, really hit it on the head of reception perception that Ja'Lynn Polk is a Z. He's a slot. We already knew when he came out of the draft that he wasn't an ideal X receiver because he's not going to create a ton of separation. He's not exceptionally big, and he's not exceptionally fast, but he is a good football player. Now, I think part of it is the fact that, like, Mayo also touched on blocking. He raved about Polk's blocking when they drafted him, but he hasn't really made a lot of impact plays in that regard. You know who has? Kayshon Boutte, the guy who now in a lot of those or in some of those 3 receiver sets is the Z receiver. So he's been making the blocks and he's close to the line of scrimmage and close to the play. So because he's been blocking well, yeah, you want him in that role. And then Kendrick Bourne, obviously a veteran, he knows what to do and he's been a good blocker in the past. So they've really been the main Z's the past couple weeks, or at least last week, because as we know, Kendrick Bourne really just got his feet wet against the Dolphins. But yeah, he's not built to play X because at X, he's basically just running goes, slants, and hitches. Like that's the entire route tree because you're near the sideline. You can't really run a ton of outbreaking routes unless you're closer inside the numbers. But with their scheme, that X is usually outside the numbers. So yeah, he is limited schematically because he doesn't have the field to work with like he would more often as a Z or in the slot. But at the same time, bro, like no block, no rock. Like you got to earn that spot. Kayshon Boutte's outplaying you. Kendrick Bourne is established on this team. You need to earn a role. So yeah, I absolutely agree that it's not the easiest position for him to play X because it's not a natural fit. But if you have other guys that are doing their jobs better and the Z role is going to be the one where you typically see more, throws on play action, RPOs and things like that, you may be more involved than you would at X. So, that's really just what it comes down to. And
I wonder too, Taylor, and this is sort of going to be our last segment until we break for a second and get into the mailbag. But I wonder if that turns into Ja'Lynn Polk, frankly, being benched right now, somebody who they can't trust, who's not catching the football, he's not running the right routes all the time. Because Jerod Mayo mentioned today that they will be making some lineup changes and shakeups because they're just not getting it done. And there's guys out there that they don't have confidence in doing the right things. He mentioned
really quick. I will say to that point, I feel like that's more about the defense.
Okay. That's
offensive shakeups could be there as well. But I do think just because Javon Baker hasn't proved it either, Tyquan Thornton was a healthy scratch after playing 1 snap. So it's like, they're also not really flushed with options at wide receiver. I think they're still going to stick with Polk, but I think this may be another week where we see more of Kendrick Bourne and less.
That's a good point. I think Kendrick Bourne becoming healthier, Ja'Lynn Polk sort of dying off a little bit instead of letting him figure it out on the field. Maybe there's a little bit of a discrepancy in the reps.
Support us and sign up at Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS or download the app today and use code CLNS at prizepicks.com/CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5.